Hello, everybody. I am Drew Duncan. Do not forget that Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan Radio. Don't forget you can find me on YouTube and Patreon at Drew Duncan Radio, and I am wherever you are listening to the podcast. Simply tell your device to play Drew Duncan on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, etc. I am wherever you are listening to podcasts. The Dallas Cowboys have a bit of a conundrum right now with their quarterback situation. Reports are suggesting that they have decided to franchise Dak Prescott going into this season at quarterback. And with that franchise tag, he's going to have to play under a certain salary. And we're not talking longevity. We're talking 1 year. So you can basically do one of two things, right? You can keep franchise tagging somebody until you're able to give them their payday, or you can go ahead and just work things out from the beginning. And reportedly, going into 2020, the Dallas Cowboys, and this is, of course, according to the InsideStar.com, will have $75 million in cap space. And you've got Amari, Byron, and Dak, who all have contracts coming up this season. And, I got to tell you, first of all, you have to ask yourself, what makes a payday for a quarterback? Because anymore, it just seems like it's either a guy with an astronomical amount of stats, or it's somebody that wins a lot of games, right? I mean, that's what it's supposed to be. But by that notation, Tom Brady is making less than a good majority of quarterbacks that are out there. He's making less than Matt Stafford. He could be making less than Dak Prescott. He's making less than Russell Wilson. He's making less than Ryan. He's making less. I mean, come on. The list goes on and on and on, right? You're making less money than Matty Ice, who you came back and beat in a Super Bowl. So here's the situation. When I initially talk a lot of times about money and what a player is worth, one of the things that I go into that is outside of wins and rings and things like that is what kind of audience that individual brings. Because we're talking jersey sales, we're talking TV numbers, we're talking TV ratings, ticket sales, all those things go into what makes a player worth X amount of dollars to an organization. It's not just wins. You would think it would be that simple. Hey, man, you're Tom Brady. You've won 6 Super Bowls. You've been to 9 with the organization. Here's the payday that we should have given you a long time ago. Now, to be fair, Brady has asked for those pay cuts. John Elway, back in the 90s, supposedly asked for a pay cut, but then, of course, we saw what happened and how they inflated the numbers and the money and did all this stuff on the back end to give him the type of money that he was really seeking. But the point of the matter is simply this. When we start thinking about football players, athletes in general, what are they worth to an organization? It goes beyond the win. So let's just start there, right? What are the jersey sales like for Dak Prescott? Well, in 2018, he had the number 1 jersey in all of the NFL, but it's just not that way right now. So if you would have said in 2018, yeah, absolutely, because what was it? The numbers were between March 1 and November 1 that season. He had the number 1 jersey in the NFL. As a matter of fact, he had the top jersey among all genders across the board, and he was leading a lot of SEC representatives who had also come out. So Dak Prescott was holding his own water in the NFL in terms of jersey sales. But would that jersey sale be as high right now, given that the Dallas Cowboys can't seemingly score points against teams that have solid defenses, given that they have struggled in certain weather situations? You had Jerry Jones saying that he felt like this team was very talented and they should have been able to beat the New England Patriots, i.e. getting rid of Jason Garrett and bringing in McCarthy, which goes into the other aspect of this. Does Mike McCarthy think that Dak Prescott is a guy that he wants to move forward with? Is he going to fit schematically into what he's doing? The type of locker room atmosphere that he wants? Is he the leader that he wants? Then we finally get to winning football games. And it's just not something that they're doing. But why aren't they doing that? Again, you could circle right back around to coaching and go, well, with the talent level that this football team had a season ago, they should have easily won more football games than they did, right? But then again, you listen to the quote from Bob Stoops, and he would tell you, quote, people think it's easy, but it's not, end quote. He's talking about winning. Again, pretty simple. If everybody was a winner, we would all be winners. But that's just not the case, right? One team is a national champion at the end of the season. One team is a Super Bowl champion. One team is an MLB champion. One team is a hockey champion. One team is an NBA champion. That's all there is to it. So if everybody could be winners, they all would be, but we're not. But you could circle back around to Jason Garrett, though, with the play calling and go, well, this should have been an under-the-center football team. Mike McCarthy's probably going to institutionalize a lot of that philosophy into this football team now, and it might make them a little bit better. That's going to be part of that. Is that going to be part of what happens? But even if he does do that, does he think Dak Prescott is the guy that if the running game isn't working, he can get you to where you want to go? Because, one of the things that I talked about in the playoffs this year when the Vikings played the 49ers, I felt whichever team was forced to be a quarterback and the run game was not working at all, that would be the team that would come away victorious. Minnesota was not able to get the run game going. Cousins was forced to being a quarterback, and his team faltered as a result. Those are the things that I'm talking about. So when you start looking at it as a whole, is Dak Prescott worth $30 million, $40 million? Supposedly, he turned down $30 million and said he wanted $40, but then he, said that those reports were not necessarily true and all those kinds of things. So now, when you're a fan, I want to know, what do you think? Do you think Dak Prescott is worth every bit? Look, I know that there are people out there that'll tell you, hey, it doesn't get a whole lot better than Dak Prescott, and you could do a whole hell of a lot worse. And I'm not going to say that you could do any better, and I'm not going to say you could do any worse. What I am going to tell you is, do you think that Dak Prescott is a type of guy that can just end up being another Tony Romo? Because Romo had that stigma that he could get you to big game situations, i.e. the playoffs, but he could never finish the job. The NFC East was soft this year. Seriously soft. And the Cowboys had a layup in being able to take the division. And they could not accomplish it. Now, what do you want to blame? Do you want to blame Jason Garrett? Do you want to blame the quarterback? Do you want to blame the defense? Do you want to say we didn't get all out of Zeke after we gave him his payday? Me personally, I would say it's mostly wrapped up into a lot of those things all at once, but I would definitely point at Jason Garrett, and I would also point at Kellen Moore, who's his offensive coordinator, who he clearly gave a lot of control to, and I would have said, why are we throwing the ball so much? We have Zeke. We seem to do so well when we're under center. Let's game plan more under the center plays. But that wasn't the case. They threw the football more times than not, and so I just personally think that if they are going to franchise tag him for a season, I don't think it's necessarily the wrong move, to be perfectly honest with you. I think it would be like saying, we're going to give you one more year under a new coach, a new scheme, see how things go. We're going to give you an opportunity to really show what you can do. And if you perform, then we're going to give you that contract that you're looking for. If we win 12 games, we get deep into the playoffs, we get home field advantage. If we're to an NFC championship game, if we're doing those things, and there were a couple of games where I saw you put the team on your back and create, because, Dak had some guys open. He had a lot of guys open in some of those play calls from Kellen Moore this season, and I'm telling you what, he missed a lot of throws, and they left a lot of points on the field, guys. A lot of points on the field. So we'll see what happens. Guys, I am Drew Duncan. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan Radio. You can find me on YouTube and Patreon by looking for Drew Duncan Radio. And do not forget that I am wherever you are listening to podcasts. Simply tell your device to play Drew Duncan on Spreaker, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, etc. I am wherever you are listening to podcasts. And as always, don't you dare touch that dial.